Hey, welcome to Represent. I am Crunk Chocolate, part of Shades of Blue content season, where we are bringing you an episode every other day throughout the summer. Where other podcasts, they're going on holiday, they're taking a break. Here we are, Shades of Blue, dropping shows, feed up to 10, episode, cranking that out for you, buddy. We love you, Shady Gang. So Represent is where I get the chance to relax a little. No tribalism for us, temporary truces. I can bring on most dope people to talk about how they fell in love with football and the clubs that they support. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up, like it, leave a comment on what you thought of the episode. For those who prefer the audio experience, rate and review us on those podcast apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, all those delicious digital streaming platforms. I have a wonderful guest for you all, a first-time guest here, Shady Gang. You can find his articles about STL City SC at St. Louis Magazine. But if you want to get it straight from the tap, from him himself, check out his Substack, Talking Soccer. Shady Gang, give it up for Justin Horneker. I hope I said
Yeah, it's great. A little bit
repeat.
when we were in the waiting room, but I'm excited to unpack my fandom a little bit.
Yes, and I am excited to hear it. This is the exact space for it. And so let's get into it. The first is the easiest. Let's get to know each other. The icebreaker. Introduce yourself. Plug the things that you do. Who are you, Justin?
Yeah, happy to be here. You talked about my two main things, St. Louis magazines, where I cover St. Louis City SC for Major League Soccer, and we do other like St. Louis soccer stuff. And then Talking Soccer is where I talk MLS, National Women's Soccer League, other things that interest me in the soccer world. That's kind of where you can find me. That's what I'm really trying to do right now. I've done other audio and video stuff, but like, man, life's busy right now. So that's where you find everything.
I love it. Well, let's get into it. Paired together, overrated, underrated. We're actually going to start with the underrated because the last couple times I started with overrated. So this is a change up for myself.
Nice.
It's not for you, obviously. But underrated thing about football, and it could be general sport, culture, fandom, rule. Yeah.
I think underrated for me, especially in watching a game, is like a nice, clean tackle that just takes the sting out of an attack. I think that for me is like maybe one of my favorite things in soccer that, like, if you ask your normal fan, they probably wouldn't think much of it. So,
no, that's a very solid one because I grew up playing rugby. And so whenever there can be a chance of physicality in soccer, I'm here for it. And you're right. When someone just comes in and they just kind of clean them out and they still even have the ball just like gliding on them, just keep going back onto the attack and just immediately get it going. You're just like, oh, let's go.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Were you a soccer player yourself?
I think I played CYC soccer like everyone does. Growing up, getting older, I was more like basketball, track and field, cross country. Those are kind of my sports. Yeah. I ran cross country and track in college, actually. So like where I come into it as like a soccer fan, I think mainly like in college, I was teammates with a lot of soccer players. So like we would like wake up or like come back after practice.
Well, let's not get to that. That's the next question. We'll get let's quickly get to the overrated, God. So then we can get to how you feel.
I'm just rushing through it.
No, you're fine. Hey, no. Again, passion. This is what we come here for, man. We want truly, especially during the season, our Shady Gang. We have a lot of people who support us who don't listen, who aren't really City fans, and that's like the beautiful thing about people who support us. So this is a nice reprieve for them to be able to hear about just the world of football. So yeah, no, I'm totally here for all of this. Yeah. Yes, and we're here for it. So what is something that you feel is overrated about football?
Ooh, I think like my biggest thing, and this comes recently too, because I've come full circle on this, but complaining about VAR, I think is like an overrated thing on me. I just want to see it like not there. I think I just don't want to talk about it. I don't want to interact with it.
So does that mean you want it gone, or you just don't even care about it? It just is
Like, I
what it
think
is.
if you would have asked me like a year and a half ago, I would have said I want
Mhm.
them to come in and make like every play. I want them to get it correct. But I think so much of VAR is focused on those like little minuscule things that don't actually matter over the course of a game that like I think I just want it gone, honestly. Like that's
No, I'm with you.
never gonna happen. So I think that's why I can have such a harsh stance on it.
it I am it all seems so simple. Again, me growing up with rugby and the way that they use it and how the referee handles it, but also you can hear what the ref is saying to the people. It's all
Mm,
very front, center, open, transparent. There's nothing weird or sketch about any of it. So we tend to get this really weird lines and things like that, or they animate the people and they're saying, "This is it.
yeah.
We know." And it's like, do you though?
And
So
like
it's
sometimes
just
it's not even really the point that they're looking at like at the moment. Yeah. And it's just like
right.
all the broadcast talking points almost put more confusion around what they're actually looking at sometimes. And like
Mhm.
I think that part of it needs to be ironed out. I do like what MLS and some leagues have started doing, and they started doing in the Women's World Cup. It's just like making refs kind of talk about the decision and what they're looking at. I think is important.
I like that. I like that. Well, let's get to the good stuff then. What made you fall in love with football?
Yeah, I think because I was thinking about this today because like I was getting into like I didn't grow up really watching soccer that much because like in the US, you're kind of like I was a basketball fan first and foremost. So like I'm watching Sports Center, I'm watching ESPN, I'm watching like what I
Yeah.
find and like unless you're up on a Saturday morning, which I wasn't a lot of times, so I was playing sports or I was sleeping in, like you kind of miss out on a lot of the soccer, like the watching aspect of it. I watched a lot of MLS when I could. I think I like really fell in love with the game through FIFA, which is kind of sad to admit out loud.
No, that's respect. Respect.
Like when you're growing up, like the video games,
Yeah.
the life. And then when I got to college, like I was going into earlier, I had roommates on the soccer team. One of my roommates was a big Liverpool fan, so like I was kind of cheering for Man United. I'm sorry to say, to almost stick it to him. And like that was a team when you're like watching soccer in America, there's like not a lot happening. So the team that's doing well at the time is like was at the point the team that you're seeing
Mhm.
at the time, which I think is why I kind of gravitated towards Man United. Also, I wouldn't say I'm like a fan at this point in time. I think that
Understand.
I got it. Like that was me
Understandable.
getting into it and like riling up my roommate. I think
Yeah.
more than anything. Uh, that's why I found the Bundesliga and like Dortmund at the time. Like Jurgen Klopp was the manager, and really kind of that Champions League summer where they face off against Bayern. Like that's kind of when I started to really like fall in love with the values of that team too, which I think in soccer is something that's interesting when you're coming to it from a like American sports mindset. Is like teams can have different political values that you kind of find yourself gravitating towards outside of like the play on the field itself. So like I kind of just fell in love with like German soccer at that point, especially Dortmund.
Nice, nice. And honestly, FIFA 2002 was when I first found out about Manchester City. And I was drawn to the fact that I didn't know that there was another team in Manchester City. They were in the Division Two. I hated Manchester United because that was the only team that you ever heard about in
Yeah.
anything when it came to
So
media
whereas I
in
watched it,
America.
you're like, screw this.
Yeah, I was like these big. Oh, who cares? Oh, Manchester. Because I just tied them to like the Yankees and stuff
Yeah.
like that. There's and yeah, then uh, I'm in. People and represent that probably have heard me say this a million times already, so they're annoyed. But you're the first time hearing it, so it works. But I'm in Iowa, very chippy, and that's
Mm.
that want to be great mindset. One day we'll be great. Iowa University, their football team every single year, the basketball team every single year. They might get ranked. They can get down to those like 10, 12s, and then they lose to some team that they should have easily beat and just plummets off of the ranking field. And we get so close, and you get that hope,
Yeah.
and the hope is what kills you. But with Manchester
I would say
City,
like
I
I
don't have
grew up as a St. Louis Blues fan. Like hockey wise more than
Mhm.
anything. And that's
Yes.
that same deal where it's like until they won, when they won, everything until that was like, okay, they're going to get close. They're going to be a good team, but they're always going to let you down when it counts most. And that's like where the formation of my sports fandom comes from. So I think that's what explains a lot about me.
Yes, yes. And I love that too, because you see a lot of people who they'll pick another team and it does kind of match the energy of their American teams that they root, but it's from a perspective of their own. And I love hearing how they tie those things together. It's always fun. Yeah. Well, do you have an origin story for how, like, I guess, so you write for all these things for St. Louis. Do you support? Are you a fan
I mean, I try
of
to
the
like,
football?
it's tough because I try to keep it like I try to keep myself like unbiased as best I can, but I support
Okay.
St. Louis football, like St. Louis soccer. And so, yeah, like there is going to be some, I want to see my hometown do well.
Yeah,
I don't call myself a fan just because I want to keep that like in
of
my mind, like
course.
that professionalism, but like my origin story with covering soccer in general kind of comes out of like being a Kansas City Current fan when they moved from Utah to Kansas City and just like being there.
Mhm.
At the moment, I was writing about Olympic sports more than anything. And just kind of like I was working at a startup and getting really burnt out with that. And Current coming to town, I'm watching NWSL, like you said, with that like growth mindset. It's like these are players that aren't at the top of their league right now, but you can tell by like how hard they're working and how like just driven they are that they want to change that. And of course, being a fan of the women's national team in general, like you just gravitate towards the mindset in that league in general. And I think like if I were to say I'm a fan of like an American team, I'd say I'm a fan of the Current, or I'm a fan of like National Women's Soccer League in general. I think that's where I get a lot of my like rah rah cheering on for. Whereas like St. Louis, I can be a little more critical because I try. I mean, you don't want to admit to like cheering in the press box or anything, but like you try to keep them an arm's reach away so that
Yeah.
the emotions don't get into your coverage too much.
Uh, I this year I've been watching the NWSL, but this is the year that I picked a team. I one of our guests who came on to our Thursday night lit stream, they gave me a rousing elevator pitch, calling card for the last bit of this episode, elevator pitch on Angel City FC, and sold me on it,
Okay,
and
all right.
sent me some like scarves and some merch. So I'm all in for them. There, it's been a very rough start. I don't want
It
to
was
hear
a
about the
heartbreaking game this
match.
weekend.
I don't want to hear about the other current games. Tom Baum, who is on our Shades of Blue, he is the main catalyst of us covering women's football on our show. But he is a Kansas City Current fan, so we hear all about it for him, and we
I just
all
think
kind
like
of root for different teams.
yeah, in
It's
that league
nice.
in general, it's so fun to cover because these are best athletes in the world. Like, you can argue
Yes.
if NWSL is the best league in the world or not. I don't want to have that argument, but these athletes themselves are like the best athletes in the world, trying to be the best at their craft. And when you're around them, it's like contagious in
Mm, I love it. I love that. Oh, okay. Well, we can broaden this up then.
a way.
Since I don't want to make it club specific, who is an all-time favorite player in football for you, and
Well,
why?
I was actually, yeah, I was. You're not gonna be happy with this, but like Wayne Rooney is kind of like how I got into soccer. Really, like that was the first player.
Boo.
Like
Okay. It was
I
nice having a conversation with
yeah,
you. Goodbye.
all right, I'll just like disconnect. That was like the first player that I felt kind of attached to, like as a soccer player. Like outside of like Kobe Jones and the U.S. national team. Like if I'm thinking like club specific, because honestly, when I'm watching the national team player games as a kid, I'm not necessarily thinking like this is a LA Galaxy legend. I'm thinking this is a like U.S. men's national team guy. So that's kind of like what you have to unpack in your head sometimes as a kid when you're not when soccer was so different back then than it is now. I think it would be a little bit easier for me to have those like fond club memories. Also, like Marco Royce at Dortmund, of course, that is like
Hmm.
some of the things that he did, especially during those like
Yes.
Champions League glory years. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, Marco Royce. I was a City fan, but I definitely was like, that dude is a baller. I
Mm,
always loved him. Uh, Oddly enough, growing up, when I was first becoming, I was a really big fan of DeMarcus Beasley, Midwest guy
yeah,
also. So that was really cool. And then it became Vincent Company, and now I'm just enjoying the football. I like all the
yeah,
players on the team, obviously, like to the club. There's legends and stuff like that, but you know, I there's no one player I have right now where I'm just like, oh, I absolutely love them. They're all great. Like there are so many talented football players, and but yeah, no, I guess I'll never be like how people stand for a specific player. Like
yeah.
that will never
I
be
think
me.
yeah, if you can just allow yourself to like enjoy the football and not get into all the tribalism
Hmm.
behind it, like sometimes that's just where the sweet spot is.
Exactly, and I that's where I want to stay. I just want to be able
Yeah,
to enjoy football and just have my rose-colored glasses for Manchester City. So
yeah.
one club in the
These
whole
players can
world, I
do
feel
no
like
wrong.
that's
These yeah, they can do no wrong. They're all perfect.
well. I don't want to say no wrong because we definitely get at these players, and specifically Garrett Taylor, the manager of our women's team.
Hmm.
He is a very divisive topic on our show. Like we are like split 50-50. Get
Speaking
him out of
of, like
here. He
the
needs to
women's
stay.
team, I would put like Bunny Shaw up there as players I enjoy watching right
Oh,
now. It's like
whoa, my gosh. So we nickname we call our women's Man City women's segment Baby Blue Baddies because they're just badasses and just the whole team is super talented and very fun. But yeah, Bunny, she's fantastic. Uh, she just did the women's game and interview with Sam Mewis, and I had so fun. I loved listening to that interview. I can hear her story a million and one times, and uh, yeah, it's been really nice jumping into the women's game.
yeah.
Uh, I say all the time, the fandom overall, the vibes are way better, way better over on the women's side than it is the men's for
I
one.
yeah,
And
I think I would agree with that because I do like I don't know, my men's coverage gets a lot more like views and things, but I almost enjoy covering the women's
mhm.
game more than I do. Like even though like my men's job pays the bills, but like if I could get like I don't even need a women's job to pay the bills. I just enjoy covering
Yeah,
them.
yeah, and yeah, just the women's just vibes all around. They're so physical. That is like the biggest thing I learned. I sat and watched the Women's World Cup last year
Hmm.
with Shea Butter FC with their watch alongs and was able to ask all the questions and absorb so much knowledge about each country and their styles and players. And those first couple of games, my jaw was to the floor with some of those
Mhm.
tackles that
Oh
would
yeah.
happen, and the ref would be like, "Get up," and I'm just like, "God, hey, what?" And they'd be like, "Please relax, Crunk,"
Yeah. The stuff that
or you're
like
gonna get burnt out.
yeah, if you go from watching a men's game to a women's game, like you're gonna be just surprised back to back by what calls aren't made in a women's game.
Right?
Like, oh, they
Yes.
just ran over each other and nothing
Right.
happened.
I'm pretty sure one of them is dead right now, but
Right.
no,
Just
it's
like
you
not
just
getting up
tell
on the
them to get
field. The
up.
referees want them to stand up though.
Oh, who is a current player that you want to watch anytime they are playing?
Dabinia, absolutely. Like as this
Oh,
was
that's a good
even
one.
like before being a Casey Curran fan, like when she was in North Carolina, I'm covering the Curran. I'm like watching those games against Dabinia. I'm watching every North Carolina game I can because that's just one player that even when she isn't scoring and assisting, like every time she picks up the ball, she's doing something kind of fantastic with her on the ball skills. So that is my hands down answer.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, then that's a solid one. I always wonder. I love this. Shout out to the Woso. We out here.
Yeah, I
This is
didn't mean to
nice.
completely go down that range, but
Oh no, I
sometimes it just takes over.
trust me. I'm here for it. No, because that is the range in this show and this football. That's what I want. I want
And then like on the men's
diversity.
side, I watch a lot of MLS right now. So like obviously like
Oh,
Lionel Messi. Let's talk about Lionel Messi in MLS if we can. I'm like watching I go back and watch the recaps and like I'm kind of halfway paying attention because I'm at the stadium at the time when they were playing Montreal this weekend. And you look in, Miami's down 2-0. You're like, okay. And then you check back in, and Messi has already like scored and has an assist at the moment. So that's him breaking Major League Soccer. I think is very interesting to me.
So Messi to the MLS hasn't jaded you as a writer?
No, I think I find issues kind of contextualizing it in a way. Like what he's doing hasn't been done before by any of the other big names that have come to MLS. And like you've seen big names come and falter because they do treat it like in a retirement league. And then like all the coverage that Messi gets, like I don't know. I don't find myself jaded by it because I'm just kind of like left wondering, like, what does it mean exactly that this guy's just going to come over here and take every record that you can in a single season record? Like, how do you feel? Like from a guy who doesn't follow or like who doesn't support an MLS club necessarily, like Messi coming to MLS, like, and the coverage that he specifically gets. What's your outside view of it?
I love it because this is what the MLS needs. This is what American soccer, I think, needs to up its cachet, get more eyes on it. That's how you get taken a little more seriously. I mean, obviously the quality at times is the quality, and I feel like the league itself kind of holds itself back. But there are players that are on there. They're definitely trying. They want to represent. I think it's more of like a culture thing, but players like Messi coming, and I want these players to come, and like Messi's calling the protocol silly. We need these players to come here and kind of call the system out instead of just coming and treating it like a retirement, just being like, hey, we're just happy to be here. Thank you for giving us your money. They need to come here and be like, thank you for giving my money. But also this one thing is pretty stupid. You guys should maybe take a look at this. They can make this football better here by doing maybe this one thing and maybe grow it. And we'll get more players who are willing to come here and scout a little bit more where we don't have to rely on, stars that are 32 to 40 to come here for a couple of years.
It's interesting because like I think the groundwork has kind of been set over the past like 5-6 years for Messi to come and there to be growth afterwards. Because if you think of like the retirement league kind of moniker and where MLS has been, there are now players underneath. Like if you look at that Miami team, there are players coming in underneath Messi that are fantastic players that are not necessarily coasting off of this one player coming in and being like heads and shoulders above the rest of the league. Like there are some talented players on that roster who get the boost by playing next to Messi. And then you're going to see like their value skyrocket as well because of that. So it kind of places it in this interesting little space of like, it's not necessarily a retirement league like you would think of when you talk like the Chinese Super League or the Saudi League, but these aging European players can come over, they can find a spot, and they can be next to these exciting youngsters and these like mid-20s players that are coming from leagues elsewhere that are trying to like, find the spotlight to get back to Europe or get back to that top league. I think that's an interesting spot where you're not necessarily the best league in the world, but there's a lot of interest in your comings and goings.
Yes. And I'm still so new to everything. I'm just absorbing everything.
Yeah.
And this is why I love having people like you on who, are tapped into the American leagues. I just had Donald White on, and it was fantastic hearing his perspective on everything.
It's great to have those different places, honestly. Like, yeah.
Exactly. I love it. I am never afraid to admit it with things that I don't know, and I love learning and hearing about other people's passion. And luckily, I'm able to hear about other people's passions that also is my passion. So this is nice. Do you have a match day routine or a football superstition at all?
I mean, not really. Like, I just try to. My real superstition is that I have to like have every single match note written down before I like actually go. If I'm going to cover a game, I need to have like everything written out beforehand. So when I get there, I kind of have the storylines that I'm thinking of in my head before a game. But like, I don't really have many superstitions. That was kind of baked out of me because, like, being a college athlete, you know, you kind of like superstitions can become a crux at a point. So
yes,
that's kind of why I don't necessarily have a ton of superstitions. I'm just not that kind of guy. Also, I think.
Well, no worries. Let's dive into the writing aspect of your because that's almost like a routine, like a match day routine of, like you said, you have your
like it's a
notes
home game.
ready
I'm
to
trying to get
go.
to that stadium like when it opens, so I can get up, I can get my seat, and I can like get my facts together if I haven't finished them yet. And I love being able to watch the warm ups and like the little interactions that you see during warm ups and during these opening moments that give you an idea of like how the game day is going to go. I think like getting a good sense of what the entire environment is like is important for me.
I love that. What do you enjoy about the stadiums? Because you know, Casey Current, they just got a new one.
Yeah.
So how is that? How has that been? Have you been to it? I assume.
Yeah, I've been a couple times. It's a nice little like. Obviously, you almost start to wonder now with the growth of NWSL, like if they weren't ambitious enough in terms of making it like larger than 10,500. But like, it's a great stadium and it's kind of minimal. It looks out onto the river, which I think is fantastic when if you're sitting at the press box, you're like right next to it. So you get that nice like river breeze coming off. Maybe a little inside baseball on it. But yeah, and I think like when you watch those games and you watch like how excited a crowd can get sold out in an environment like that, it's kind of intimate. It's a good place to watch. Yeah. Like, yeah, both the teams I covered mainly are still in those like brand new, shiny soccer specific stadiums. So yeah, I'm kind of spoiled in that aspect of things.
Well, here is the final question, and this is one of my favorite. This is my favorite question on the. And again, maybe just pick. It's not your club, but maybe push people. Let's do Kansas City Current since they spark more joy. Say a random person comes up to you.
No, sorry, I cut you off. I just.
Oh no, you're good. No, what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say they're kind of like my intro into writing about like soccer too. So they always have a special place in my heart. So I'm always happy to talk case.
Well, this is your elevator pitch. You have 30 seconds to let just someone know I'm just a random person. I'm like, hi, I would like to be a fan of NWSL. Sell me on a club. How about and ready? Go.
All right, the Kansas City Current. They're the National Women's Soccer League. It's one of, if not the best women's soccer league in the world. They have some great players. Debinha, she's Brazilian. She's one of the best players in the world, and she's going to just like excite you every time you see her touch the ball. But they have a couple of Brazilians on that team, Bia Zanerato, and then they have also some young Americans behind them to kind of like fill out the lineup. And then they're the first NWSL's first soccer-specific stadium. The environment is incredible. I rambled.
Nailed it.
I need to work on my elevator pitch. That wasn't crisp.
Well, you don't have to do them often. That's why I throw this on there. You know, a little fun, and then at the end, I'm like, all right, lightning round, go.
You're like trying to get everything in that you want to say in the 30 seconds. I'm like watching
the I love so many things.
I'm sweating now.
Yeah. Who knew I would turn it into a game show at the end?
I love it.
Oh man. Well, truly, thank you for coming on. Thank you for your time. Please, one more time, plug yourself. Let people know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, if you like that elevator pitch, you can find me covering the National Women's Soccer League on my Substack, Talkin' Soccer. I also cover Major League Soccer and put some St. Louis City stuff over there as well. And then if you like St. Louis City, you can follow me and our work at St. Louis Magazine. I'm always on Twitter at Horneker Justin, my last name, first name. That's where you can find all my stuff too.
Perfect. Well, Shady Gang, I will be back shortly in a day or two with a new episode with a new fantastic guest. So I'll see you soon. You know the